And out of their West Indian island comes a tale of terror and voodoo, of witchcraft and zombies.
And a farmer with the longest shotgun you've ever seen plays the villain.
This is Schlock Your Socks Off.
Welcome to another episode of Schlock Your Socks Off. I'm your host, Mike, joined as always by
Jeremiah
and Bree.
And thanks for listening. Sorry we didn't have a new podcast for you guys last week. Got a little busy, decided to take a week off before we started the next batch of them. So here we are. We're back. And we got a fun one for you today. What did we watch, Maya?
We watched, well, let's give a little brief synopsis. If I even can, actually.
Here, the best way to do that is for me to give you the synopsis that is given to us by Hulu. Alex Whitaker and 3 other gifted psychics are investigating rumors that the secret of life has been discovered by master puppeteer Andre Toulon. The psychic quickly discover Toulon's secret of death in the form of 5 killer puppets, each one uniquely qualified for murder and mayhem. Together, they're an army of skilled assassins genetically programmed to guard the deadly secrets of Puppet Master.
Yeah, that pretty much sums it up, actually. I couldn't have said it any better myself.
Though I will say, when you read that, it makes it sound like it's going to be way more exciting of a movie than it really is.
For sure. And apparently it also has, did you say 10 sequels? Or there's 10 of them in this franchise?
There's about 10 in the franchise right now.
The movie is Puppet Master.
And for those of you who've never heard of Puppet Master, it is from famed Hollywood schlockmeister Charles Brand. I'm not entirely sure on that.
Unimportant.
But he created Full Moon Studios, which anybody who knows anything about horror knows that for many, many years they've been the king of the straight-to-video, straight-to-VHS horror film. And they used to be distributed by Paramount, since they were cheap to make. I believe the original Puppet Master was made on less than $500,000.
Yeah, it looked like it was fairly inexpensive. There weren't too many like crazy effects, and as far as I can remember, there weren't any like really high budget like kills or anything, nor a high body count. So it's not like one of those movies. It's like a slow paced horror, but I don't know how I felt about it, actually.
To be fair, this movie is kind of confusing. They kind of do it as like a murder mystery, almost, so you don't really get a lot of information about what's going on until near the end of the film. Basically, you're just introduced to a bunch of different psychics. Each scene showcases their different powers. Like our main character, Alex, he dreams the future, which that's how they open the movie after the little prologue with the actual Puppet Master, Andre Toulon, being chased down by Nazis in 1939 California. Because that happened.
Crazy stuff. And he made a pretty solid collection of puppets. But we get to see the first puppet at the very beginning of the movie, and it's like running through the hotel and being kind of a bitch. It seemed like he was getting like scared from people screaming at him and stuff, so I don't know what he was using that puppet for back in the 30s, but we got him running through the entire hotel, and I love that puppet. Out of all of them, I think that was my favorite looking puppet. I don't know where I was going with that, but I was just mentioning that they use that shot a lot, like a lot of POV shots in this movie.
And it's a definite ripoff, if you ask me, of the POV shots they used in the original Child's Play whenever Chucky's running around.
Yeah, and you can like hear his little like footsteps and stuff.
Which I wish they would have done that as opposed to what they do in the Puppet Master. No, but what they do in the Puppet Master is you kind of hear footsteps, but you also hear a lot
breathing.
Of grunting and wheezing. It sounds like Tony Soprano trying to run up a flight of stairs, and it's really distracting and kind of kills any tension that's in the scene.
And it's all movie too. Like it's every time it's in the POV or we see the puppet or whenever the puppet's doing anything, they're kind of wheezing or grunting or overdoing it a little bit. And how many puppets did we see in this movie? Like 6 or 7 total?
Yeah, there's a couple you see in the Andre Toulon scene in the very beginning that don't make an appearance later in the film.
Yeah.
Which one was your favorite?
I like the one where you can see his like eyes on the inside of its skull.
He's got the hook in one hand and a knife for the other.
That one was my favorite for sure.
I think his name was Blade.
Yes, I liked Pinhead.
Which one is that? The one with the tiny
the
head?
tiny head and the actual puppeteer hands for the arms, kind of like the Swedish chef from the Muppets.
Yeah. What was your favorite?
Blade.
A Blade.
I loved because let me paint you a picture of what Blade looked like. He had a fedora on, kind of like something Van Helsing would wear, and he had long, like shoulder length, white, silvery hair, and then he had a hook and a blade on each hand. So I thought he looked pretty rad.
He did look pretty rad, but was it me or did it seem like there's more puppets than actual deaths in this movie?
There were. I definitely think there were.
So we didn't even get to see like each puppet get a solid 1 or 2 kills. And I guess that might not be what they were going for, but they should have, or add useless kills and stuff. Because I guess each character that died was like a character that they were like focusing on and stuff. But there could have been some useless bullshit characters that we could have seen go away, I don't know, to like excite me a little bit more throughout the movie. But it was made in, what, 1988?
89.
So it's an old movie, and I went into it knowing that. And I guess I was expecting there to be way more brutal kills, or at least creative kills, since they're using fucking puppets the entire time. But I digress.
So, along with Alex, we have 3 other psychics, Frank, Carissa, and Dana.
And what were each of their powers again?
Carissa had the ability to like touch any object and know its entire history. They describe it as she can sit in a car and tells you who owns it. She can lay in a bed and give you its entire history. And they really, in this movie, just use that as a plot device for sex scenes and sexual misconduct.
Yeah, there might have been more boobs in this movie than kills too, actually.
And there wasn't even a lot of boobs in this movie.
No, there were not.
Dana is... They call her the White Witch. She basically makes her living as a fortune teller, but she does have visions. Like, she has a vision of her own death in the scene we're introduced to her in. And fun fact, you know what? Never mind. I don't remember the fun fact. I'll have to tell you later.
It must not be that fun.
So the basic premise of this movie is these psychics come together at this old-ass hotel on the California coast because they were summoned by a man named Gallagher, only to find out that Gallagher, before they arrived, had stuck a gun in his mouth and blew his fucking brains out. Which, kudos to the coroner, because dude committed suicide by gun and they were still able to do an open casket. That's an artist right there.
Yeah. Did any of you guys... So there were a couple spots in the movie where just like editing problems and stuff that we noticed that I guess are really minor in the grand scheme of things. But Mike noticed something during, I think, the first puppet kill that we get with Pinhead.
Yep.
There's this scene where Mike, you should explain it because I can't even.
This is going to be kind of hard to explain without visual representation, so bear with me on this. So we see basically the lone caretaker of this like probably 350 room hotel, if the exterior shots are to be believed. And she's throwing a log on the fire, you know, prodding it with the fire poker, keep the thing going nice and strong. And Pinhead decides to start a sneaky up on her. And this is another point I wanted to make real quick. The Hulu description calls them master assassins. I don't think they're very good at their job, because I mean, when Pinhead's sneaking up on this lady, he, of course, plays a funky piano chord to make her look back like, oh god, I'm not alone. And then when she goes back to tending the fire, he does it again. And then she gets up, walks over to the piano to check and see if there's anybody there, leaving the fire poker by the fireplace. The next shot we see is of Pinhead the puppet in front of that fireplace, picking up the fire poker. Then we cut back to the maid standing by the piano. There's nobody there. She turns back to the fireplace and goes to continue her work. She kneels down in front of this one fireplace in the entire room that they're shooting in, notices that the fire poker isn't there. Cut to Pinhead, again, in front of this same fireplace, raising the poker like he's about to hit her with it. Cut back to the maid, who then looks back behind her, which is where the piano is. And then she gets hit with it, and she's dead. Even though the filmmakers, by showing him raising the poker in front of the fireplace, they should actually be standing side by side. So it's just really, really bad filmmaking. Like, somebody... I don't know if it was a line producer or an assistant. The editor should have caught it. The cameraman should have noticed. Somebody should have said, hey, we can't use that. Because it just doesn't make sense.
Or let's reshoot it, for the love of God. You noticed another one, Brianna. What was it? It was in the scene where they're having sex.
Okay, so I enjoy a sex scene as much as the next person. But with this sex scene, okay, I will paint you a picture again. So Carissa, who is the one that she can touch or,
she's the sexual plot device of the movie. That's just the easiest way to say it.
Basically. So, she's the blonde, somewhat hot, and she ties up her boyfriend or colleague and blindfolds him, and she's straddling him. They're having sex, but, in every scene that they show you, the bedsheet is covering him, so they're not. It looks like she's having sex with the bedsheet.
Yeah, there's a sheet between their bits and pieces, so there's no penetration, unless that was some weird 80s form of contraception. Like, let me just put this sheet around my Johnson before I enter thee, madam.
It works every time. Is she pregnant? She's not pregnant. So.
Well, she didn't long enough for us to find out if she were pregnant.
Oh yeah, you're right. But that one I think had potential to be really good and might have been my favorite kill of the movie out of the 4 or 5. But I feel like they could have done more because they hear a noise come in, Mr. Dude's wheezing, Mr. Puppet Dude's wheezing when he's going under the bed, and she's like, oh, there's someone under the bed or something under the bed, and the guy says, untie me. She's like, 1 sec, and she leaves him tied. That's the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life, which I guess they both had it coming, but she just pokes her head under the bed, and you see the puppet with his drill head, because one of them has a drill head, just charge at her. And I think my biggest problem with this movie is something that happened with each of the kills. Everyone had more time to react and fight back against these tiny-ass puppets than they did. And whenever someone did fight back against the puppets or try to push them, they could make them go flying. So I think everybody that died in this movie didn't even bother kicking the goddamn puppet. And that would have solved everything.
Or stomping on them.
Yeah.
So they basically all deserve to die.
Yes. Exactly. And I don't know, I guess it was just a missed opportunity not having all of the puppets just going crazy. But I could see why not, because it wasn't really focused on that. It was more focused on the dude who shot himself at the hotel when all the psychics came there. It's more focused on him and his story, I guess. But I wanted to see more puppet deaths and stuff.
I agree with you on that one. And see, this is where the movie tends to get a little confusing because we're getting into spoiler territory now. In the final scene of this film, we see that Gallagher, the man who we had been led to believe blew his own damn head off, is alive in the final scene, and he turns out to be the villain of this film. You find out that he had learned the Puppet Master's secrets, and he had been working on some puppets of his own, but somehow he also used the Puppet Master's secrets to bring himself back to life.
Reanimate corpses.
Which, that's where the movie gets me, is it doesn't know its own rules for this fictional world they've created, because, our guy who has the dreams of the future, who's an Ivy League professor or whatever, very clearly, through heavy exposition, explains that the Puppet Master's secret was the ability to bring life to inanimate objects. But they never once say that it can bring the dead back to life, or it can give this inanimate object the power to vomit leeches at will. And
There's a lot of leeches in this movie.
It's just like they changed the rules of what the Puppet Master secret is whenever it's convenient to the plot. Unless, of course, before Gallagher killed himself, he made himself an identical body out of, like, sandwich meats and some plastic wrap.
Please tell me there's a Puppet Masters in space.
That I could not tell you.
Maybe Puppet Master versus Evil Bong.
No, there is a retro Puppet Master.
What is a retro Puppet Master, Brie? Tell us.
I don't know. You tell us what you think it means. And then I think there's a Puppet Master versus Demonic Toys.
Yes, that's another great schlocky franchise.
Never seen it.
It's almost like a Puppet Master ripoff.
Is
It's
it
kind of bad.
Bride of Puppet Master.
Yeah, something like that. Oh, here's the fun fact I was going to tell you. The blonde girl in the opening scene with Dana the White Witch, who's getting her fortune read,
Yeah.
that's the girlfriend in Bride of Reanimator.
Oh,
the one
cool.
that dies at the end of the original Reanimator.
A much better film.
Yes, a much, much better film. So, biggest problem with this movie, what was it?
It was so... And I that sounds weird saying it, but it was boring. I was bored. There was some good stuff and stuff, but overall I just felt like it was an hour and a half, and it felt longer, which usually with movies like this it should fly by for me because it's so much fun and there's so much happening. This one's just a little too slow for me, I think, and not enough action or not enough blood, guts, and puppet kills. But that's it. Everything else worked fine, and I'm fine with like the flaws. The acting was okay. It's just I think I wanted more out of it, and that is all.
Brie, biggest problem with this film?
I can't really think of any. I kind of enjoyed this film. It was slow to the point where I was like, okay, I think I'm gonna do some research on my phone. I think I'm gonna eat. But other than that, I actually enjoyed it. I liked the thought of creepy puppets. I enjoyed the puppets. I think it's just, I don't know, it's not really epic, like Killer Clowns from Outer Space, like there's so many like epic moments. Just watching this movie, I kind of miss Killer Clowns from Outer Space, but
True.
We all miss Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
I guess there's just nothing. I don't know if the word's monumental. I don't know. Like, there's just nothing big about this movie. It just stays kind of like at a steady pace the entire time. So I guess it's a bit boring.
Yeah.
Is what I mean
And even
to
like the
say.
big reveal it's not like unexpected at all. Like I think it's a puppet movie. Of course, the dead guy that they're showing in the casket's going to be a puppet. It just made too much sense. So there wasn't any big moment or big kill or anything to really twist, like to make you be like, holy shit, I remember that. It's more of like, oh, I remember that.
Very monotone of a movie.
Yeah.
But that is all.
Favorite part of the movie?
Favorite part of the movie? I think my favorite part of the movie is when, and this wasn't when I was watching the movie, but now looking back, I liked when he was tied up on the bed and there's nothing he can do while this female puppet, who he thinks at first is his girlfriend, even though she's much smaller
and made of wood.
Yeah, made of wood, but he's retarded and mentally challenged. Sorry, and he lets her do whatever he's doing, and it releases a leech on his body, and at first he's like into it or whatever, even though it's clearly like a slug or fecal matter or something. Like he has no idea what it is, and he's okay with it because he's a freak. And it starts hurting, and I just thought it was interesting of an idea to be tied down and not be able to do anything while something's equally pleasuring you and trying to kill you. So I thought that was cute. What about you, Brianna?
There's not really one significant part that I liked the most, but I kind of enjoyed when Carissa, the sexual object of the movie, I liked it whenever she did start feeling the history of said object. I liked it. I don't know. I like those parts. I was very
Very arousing.
yeah. Those were fun.
Personally, I'm gonna say my least favorite thing about this whole film, my biggest problem with it, is just the lack of logic behind it. They don't know the rules to their own universe, and it makes it hard to suspend your disbelief when it seems like this puppet master's secret has limitless powers depending on what's most convenient for the story at that point.
Yeah.
And as far as favorite part of this film, this is going to be a little weird one, but it's the fight between Gallagher and Alex at the end before the puppets kill him. Because that is very clearly two grown men nearing, retirement age who've very clearly never been in a fight before. Neither of them. It just looks so awkward and so weird. They've got like pointed dancer's toes on these weird kicks that they're doing, and it's just so bad that it makes me smile.
That's a win, I think. I would totally be down to watch a sequel, but I want to skip a couple.
I was gonna say, if we're gonna cover any more of those on the podcast, we're gonna dive to the deep end because they can only get weirder.
I hope there's a space one. Oh my god, that would be the one.
All right, friends. So, would you guys recommend people see this? Yay, nay?
Yeah.
I'd say check it out for yourself.
Yeah,
you might find more out of it than we did.
Yeah.
I personally, not a huge fan, but yeah, make up your own mind. Go see it. Tell us if we're wrong. Tell us if it's the greatest thing ever, or if we're right and it's just kind of meh.
Yeah. No, it was fine. I'd give it a watch. If you listen to this whole thing and you haven't seen the movie and you're still interested, then yeah, definitely watch it. But anybody else, if you've already seen it, I don't know if you'll ever see it again. I don't think I will ever choose this movie ever again.
Yeah, no, I don't think I've watched it 3 times in the past week getting ready for this podcast, and I don't think I'll ever be watching it again.
I'm so sorry.
Thrice is enough.
My goodness.
You could have watched the finale of Game of Thrones 3 times.
I know. And I think with that, that's where we're going to end the podcast for this week. So thanks for listening, guys.
Bye.
And we'll see you next week.